The story starts with a man pouring acid in a bowl, hurting someone inside the house, and he commits suicide by drinking it. Sometimes later, a girl named Siccin was playing with her son Birol. Later, she leaves him in a room when she gets a call from her husband Adnan, where it seems as their son's first birthday. While she was in the call, the wardrobe in the room where her son was playing suddenly starts to shake and falls on top of Birol, killing him on the spot. The relationship between Siccin and Adnan became toxic after their son's dead, as Adnan blames Siccin for the death. In the night Adnan comes back to home after work and acts normal, he later talks about his brother, whose name they used for their son. Suddenly she hears a loud knock from the door again, and she was to answer. Her husband screams at her for late response. Hearing this, she gets scared and looks inside to see the person who came, as her husband wasn't there. Next day, she tells her friend Ainur about the encounter and the person mentioning her brother-in-law, who died 15 years ago, to which her friend suggests her to see a Hoja for some advice. Hearing that, Siccin gets angry and leaves from the place, telling her friend to never speak to her again. While on her way to home, Siccin sees the wardrobe which killed her son on the middle of the road, which suddenly turns into two jinns and scares her. In the night, Siccin dreams as a jinn tearing a woman's belly for birth. The woman suddenly points to Siccin and asks to give her child back. Seeing all this, she screams and wakes up. In the next day, she goes to her son's tomb, and there she sees two jinns standing there, and she runs from the place scared. She reaches home to see her son's dress, which she placed outside to dry, was gone, and rushes inside to see a box which holds his items was empty, except a photo. Suddenly, a doll comes out the box and scares her. Next day, Siccin and Ainur visits a man named Abdullah, who's a Hoja. He asks Siccin to write her name 3 times in a paper and put a drop of blood in the paper. He later puts the paper in a glass, fills water, and makes a kid to drink the water and starts praying. He sees her past from the reflection and asks her about her aunts from paternal sides. It is revealed that the person who died by drinking acid was her dad. Hoja then tells her that a strong spell named 41 Stitch was cast against her, and that was done by one of her paternal aunt. He tells her that the person who performed the spell should be found to remove the curse, and asks her to find that person. Siccin visits her mom Nekmiya and grandma, and later asks her mom about her aunt. Her mom then tells her that her sister's husband killed his sister Zara and her 2 kids Gulbahar and Gulazar, who were 9 and 4, and later he committed suicide. Later that night, the 2 jinns scare Nekmiya. Next day, Siccin visits her aunt's village and asks for details about her. Elsewhere, Adnan takes his own life because of grief, using a gun in his son's tomb. Siccin, on the other hand, asks around, where a girl tells her about a possessed house, which is her aunt's, and points direction towards the house. While Siccin was on the way, she sees the jinns walking along the girl who told her the details. She reaches the house with a lot of sacred items outside and goes inside the house to see blood stains all over. And in the bed, she sees a doll, which is the same as she saw in her son's box, and takes the doll in her hands and suddenly hears someone calling her to play, and looks behind to see her dead cousin standing. She gets scared and runs from there. She then reaches her mom's house, and later that night she dreams about her son and her mom and wakes up. Nekmiya then consoles Siccin and goes to check her mother-in-law's. There she hears someone calling her sister and opens the wardrobe to find her sister and her kids inside and screams in fear. Siccin then reaches the room and calms her mom. In the morning, Siccin leaves her mom's house and goes to the hotel where her husband works and finds out he wasn't at work, and reaches her home to see her aunt Zara and her son's tomb inside the house. She gets scared and runs from there to Hoja and gives him the doll she took from the house. He pulls a paper from the doll and tells Siccin that the spell was casted using that doll, and it's the worst in 41 reasons to cast the spell. He then tells her to tell her mom about the curse and asks for details as to know who might have performed the spell. In the house, Nekmiya was helping her mother-in-law with medicine, and suddenly something happens to her, and she dies at that instant. Siccin reaches the house to find her grandma at the hall, where the grandma reveals that Nekmiya was jealous of her sister Zara, and her husband Ramazan always wanted a male child, to which Nekmiya used it to her advantage and asked her mother-in-law to cast a spell to kill her. She then reveals that she casted the 41 stitches and gave them a doll to keep it under the pillow, and lied to them that it will give them a male child. But that doll, which had the spell written inside it, destroyed the whole family. Later, Ramazan killed his 2 daughters, and while he was to kill his wife, he couldn't do it and killed himself. She then drops the bomb and reveals the twist that Zara was pregnant. When Ramazan killed his daughters and himself, and Hikran was Zara's daughter, as she gave birth at 7th month of the pregnancy, and Nekmia was the one who killed Zara and made her as her own daughter. Hearing all the truth, Hikran gets angry and searches for Nekmia to find her dead. The grandma, on the other hand, asks for forgiveness from her son as he killed himself because of the truth, and before committing suicide, he poured the acid in his mom's face. Hikran then reaches her home to find Adnan in the dining table, and her mom, sister, dad, and her son in the couch. The movie ends with details that she lived 2 months with her dead husband and son, and 15 months later, Hoja broke the spell. To get the latest updates, hit the like, share, and subscribe button.